From $50,000 in debt to $100,000 invested just 3 years later, doing all of that on an average salary and still managing to have a lot of fun. Financial freedom is what it's all about. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. Today, we are going to start a discussion about financial freedom. So let's start by breaking down financial freedom into three categories. First, financial security, which is where you bring in enough income to either passively or without an employer to be able to cover your basic expenses. The next level is financial independence, where you bring in enough to cover your current lifestyle. And the final step is actually achieving financial freedom when you bring in enough to cover your ideal lifestyle. Now, let me tell you, financial freedom and financial independence were not terms that I grew up hearing anything about. As a late 70s baby, I grew up before the internet, and you only knew what you learned from the world around you. My dad is a math guy, so I'm sure I heard him talking about compound interest and how money grows over time, but we grew up in a household of 6 people on just his school teacher salary, so financial freedom wasn't something I even saw them dream of. I remember one time when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, our doorbell rang. A man from our church was standing at the door with a box of food for us. I remember being confused and said, "But that is for poor people." Then it hit me. We're poor? You see, my mom was a scrappy woman, but we never looked like we were in need. She never complained about money in front of us. She took whatever my dad made and she made it last. Unfortunately, I've always struggled with pride. I was not happy that day that we had to take that box of food. And my financial journey has often looked like spending money I didn't have because I always had to be the provider for other people. I had far too much pride to let someone else provide for me or to even participate in reciprocity, where we give and receive in relationship with people. And overcoming my pride is still something I have to work on regularly. Just because I get it in check doesn't mean it goes away. I really began to figure out how to get my finances under control when I decided that I wanted to buy a house. It's like I don't think I had a single financial goal that I can remember prior to that, and I was in my mid 30s. That's crazy. But I was so accustomed to just living off of what I got paid and never thinking about the future, much less dreaming about it. It wasn't long after I purchased my first home that I stumbled across Aman and Christina from Our Rich Journey. I mention them in a lot of my videos because they made such a big impact on me. I watched them as they were finishing up their financial independence journey and preparing to retire just before the age of 40. I'm close to the same age as them, so I was starting much later and without some of the higher paying jobs that they had, but I still felt like they presented a roadmap and so many creative ideas that I finally began to believe that I could do it too. And I hope that if you are watching this video, that I can help you to see that you are also capable no matter where you are starting from. There have been some great programs over the years that have really helped people to work toward financial freedom, but it always seems like the good stuff in life gets postponed until that point that you reach financial freedom. And I'm here to tell you that that doesn't have to be the case. You can work toward financial freedom, building your journey in a way that allows you to really enjoy the things in life that you value most, rather than a sacrifice all or nothing mentality. One of the most transformative things in my journey was taking some time to develop a system for balance. On one side of the scale, I have values. On the other side of the scale, I have sacrifice. What does that create? Balance. To begin, I had to decide what my top 3 values were. I would use these 3 values to determine if I was really getting the most out of my journey. All the other areas of my life would be open for making some big sacrifices. So let's start with my values. The 3 values that jumped to the top of my list were relationships with friends and family, travel and experiences, and good food. The first 2 are probably self-explanatory, but I just want to touch on food for a second. Eating is something we generally do at least 3 times per day, and it makes a huge difference in the health of our bodies. For me, trying different cultural dishes also happens to be one of my favorite things about travel. For these reasons, it made my top 3. Now, having a list of my top 3 values does not mean that I take license to spend lavishly and without thought in these areas, but what it does mean is that I will allow room to treat myself more often or focus a lot of my creativity around how to make sure I'm living life to the fullest in these areas. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. Travel is a big one on my list. I wanted to go to Norway, but Norway is a very expensive country to visit. So I booked a work exchange on a beautiful farm along a fjord in Norway for 3 weeks. One of my best friends went with me. This trip hit all three of my values: time building relationships, travel experiences, and let me tell you, the food was amazing. I did spend some money on flights and a couple of short Airbnb stays along the way, but most of the expense of my trip was covered by this work exchange. I worked a few hours each day pulling weeds or doing odd jobs around the farm, and in exchange, I had my own room and ate all of my meals for free. The meals were all prepared homemade by our host, Astrid. It was such an incredible experience. By the way, if you want to learn about this type of work exchange on organic farms, you'll want to check out this video right up here. Another example when it comes to food is that I budget to go out to eat for a really good meal once per week. Then when it comes to my meals at home, instead of just going to the grocery store and buying whatever I set my eyes on, I find dishes that I really want to try on Instagram. I make a list of the things I need for those meals, and I only order what I need for the week. I place an order on the Walmart app and I pick up my groceries without ever having to enter the store. That means I don't ever have to deal with the Walmart craziness, and I'm also prevented from being tempted to buy things I don't need. Because of this, I rarely have food that spoils, which is good for my budget and the environment. The point is, I make sure I'm really enjoying my food, but I've also got to plan for it financially. While we're on the topic of food, we might as well touch on the infamous cup of coffee. You've all heard the financial advice that you just need to give up your coffee at Starbucks every day and save that money in order to reach financial independence. Now we have a lot of people debunking that in various ways. My thought is that both forms of looking at it have value, and I take a little from each. For example, if you spend $5 at Starbucks every day, that's $150 per month. Now, that's not nothing. It is true that if you save that $5 per day and invest it in the stock market and you average a 10% return, if you started at 20 years old, when you reach the age of 65, you would have nearly $1.3 million just from investing that money instead of spending it on Starbucks. So when you look at it from that point of view, it has some merit. I think what other people are trying to say is that you can find other ways to earn money, such as side hustles, better jobs, maybe investing in real estate, and then you can save even more without giving up your Starbucks. And that also can be true. What you don't want to be is the person who says, I won't give up my Starbucks, but I also don't have a financial plan. What you really don't want is to be 75 years old, sipping your Starbucks on your way to work as a grocery store clerk because you didn't plan. In my mind, although food is on my value list, Starbucks can be a nice treat from time to time, but it's not even close to being the best coffee. I personally love to be part of the coffee experience. It's my soul time every morning. I am longing for it before I go to bed at night. So I spend about $18 every month buying a bag of the best coffee that is freshly roasted the Monday after I order it and shipped to me directly from Antigua, Guatemala. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. I'm still not buying cheap coffee that isn't any good because I do value it, but I'm also not wasting money where it's not necessary just to buy convenience in the form of coffee at Starbucks. Does that mean I never buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks? No. On a random occasion in the airport or out with friends, I have no problem indulging in a sweet treat. But as you can see, there can be a balanced approach to life and coffee. Now that we've talked about values and a bit about balance, next I want to talk about the other side of the scale, which is sacrifice. Just like anyone else, I enjoy driving a nice car, but it doesn't make my list of top 3 values. So over the last 3 years, I either drove an old car that was paid for in cash, or I haven't had a car at all when I didn't need one because I didn't want to pay for the extra insurance. Another area of sacrifice for me is housing. I'm in my 40s and I have roommates. Doesn't bother me. Don't really care what other people think. Living alone doesn't make my list of top 3 values. So this is another area where I make sacrifices. Furthermore, you may know that I rent a house where I have a 1-bedroom mother-in-law suite attached to the house, and I run that as an Airbnb as a way to completely cancel out my rent and utilities. This is by far the largest expense that most people have, and I've been able to cancel it out, putting that money toward investments. I take full advantage of my 401k, meaning that I go without about 30% of my salary every month. Yes, it makes things a little tight, but I can afford to do that because I haven't had to pay rent. Lastly, I work hard to play hard. I don't simply rely on my salary from my job. I make these YouTube videos every week. I make a little profit from the Airbnb. I make videos as an Amazon influencer. I sell used items online, and I pick up contracting work building websites and editing videos. I'm not afraid to hustle because I'm still getting those great opportunities to enjoy the journey. And I know I've got a plan for an even better future. Because of this, I am now very close to the first real step on my journey to financial freedom, and that is financial security, where I will be able to cover my expenses with income that I'm earning either passively or semi-passively, not from an employer. Just a little over 3 years ago, I was $50,000 in debt, and I only earn an average US income. I feel like we watch all of these millionaires or people who reach financial independence who were couples both working six-figure jobs, and they are fantastic, but there is a gap there for a lot of other people. I'm here to be that normal person who is showing you that it can be done even when you're not making six figures. Now, what about you? Where can you start? Well, I would recommend starting with your list of values, followed by having a real reckoning with whether or not you're willing to make sacrifices in the areas that don't make your top three list of values. And don't think you need to do all of this in 5 minutes. If you have a partner or a family, talk it over with them. If you already know what your values are, I'd love to chat about it with you in the comments. This isn't the only way, but I do hope it inspires you to make the most of the life you've got right now and to design your journey in a way that gives you the future you really want. I hope you'll like this video and subscribe to join me every day where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.